how would you prepare a talk on God and the movies?
Good question. I think that's a really important thing to be able to do, is understand and I guess interpret the cultural products that we take in, and to not just watch things kind of uncritically and assume that what they're telling us is necessarily good or bad. I guess there are two kinds of, say, movies that you might want to look at. One is there'll be some things that are explicitly and deliberately trying to teach you something about God or about Christianity, and in that case, I think you begin to ask questions about it. What is the message that this is trying to portray about God? Is it a positive message or a negative message? And even if it's negative, it might still be a good message worth hearing and understanding. So I think it's important not to just dismiss it out of hand when it's negative. Whether it's positive or negative, you can ask, how well does the movie portray what it's trying to say? Is the critique valid if it's making a critique? In what ways is the movie constructing an accurate depiction of God or of faith? You can sort of ask tons of questions like that around the movie, and I guess interrogate how effective it is. And the other kind of thing is where maybe a movie doesn't have an explicit religious or faith-based message. It's not necessarily trying to tell you anything about God or faith. And there you have to maybe do a little bit more work in terms of looking for analogies or themes. There's some really common themes in literature and in movies that relate to the Christian story. So a lot of stories deal with issues of justice versus forgiveness, or just the idea of sin, or what is grace, what are our responsibilities. You can find a lot of thematic material, and I guess because most movies that we will watch that are made in the Western world have been shaped probably by some background of Christian morality, there'll likely be some residue of Christian ideas in there, and I think you can play around with that. You can read into it, and without saying this is what the author meant to say, you can ask questions and say, does this story tell us anything about God or about God's ways in the world? I guess in both cases, whether the director or whoever is doing it deliberately or not, I would always want to ask the question, where would I find a picture of Jesus in this story? It might be easy to find kind of a moralistic snippet, like you shouldn't do this or you should do that. But is there a way in which the story goes a step beyond kind of a moral answer to, well, where do I find Jesus Christ here? And that, I think, is a compelling way to sometimes challenge when there's a movie that might critique faith or God. Sometimes it might be a critique of a generic sort of belief in God and not a specific belief in Jesus. And if you can then bring Jesus to the conversation and say, well, this is specifically what Christian faith is about, then you can begin to think about it in a really compelling way.
Thank you.